Thank you, sophomores, for being so timely this evening. Thank you for attending this very important evening for us. As you know, it is the mission of the counseling department to keep your well-being and your safety in mind. Just yesterday, I received a call from the mother of a graduate, not from last year, but the year before, who drowned because of excessive alcohol consumption. She's not the same person anymore. And let me tell you, the families around that young man who we lost, because he was really one of ours, those ramifications stay with us forever. So this is our endeavor to educate you, to keep you safe. We want what's best for you. We want you to have fun, but we want you to do it in the best ways possible. We're very fortunate that we have the valuable Miss Williams in our counseling department. Miss Williams isn't only a wonderful counselor, but she has her doctorate degree in law from Columbia University. Before coming to MBA, she practiced law with her late father and knows a great deal of what's out there with regard to what you need to know. So she is going to this evening introduce our panelists to us. Thank you, Ms. Williams.
All right, fellas. I've done this a lot of times, and I'm going to make you a deal. You listen for an hour, and we'll be done. And if you listen and you pay attention, I promise you, you will learn something, okay? We're going to talk in a minute about what this is supposed to be and what it's not. We have very special guests here tonight to help us understand the potential legal consequences of actions you may engage in during your teenage years, all right? And that extends to the parents who are watching at home. We're also going to be discussing the potential legal ramifications for your parents and for your families. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Judge Laurie Jewett. She is not here. She's running a little late. She's coming from the city of Brentwood, where she is a municipal court judge. I asked her for a CV, and a CV is kind of a fancy word for a really extended resume, and as you get further into your legal career, that rule of it being one page kind of goes by the wayside because you include places that you've worked, places you've spoken, things you've written. So I asked our panelists for CVs, and Judge Jewett said, "I just do not do CVs." So this is what she said. She said her parents were immigrants from Germany, and she was raised in Alabama. She dropped out of the Tuscaloosa Academy spring break of her junior year after making perfect scores on both of those silly entrance exams, the ACTs, SATs, and then decided to leave at 16 and go to college at 16 with the blessing of a fabulous guidance counselor. Eventually, she chose Vanderbilt so her parents would not freak out because Stanford was her first choice, but in 1973, that was just too many hippies for them. Then she ended up discovering in college that she had a gift for advocating for people and really belonged in law school. So with the guidance of one of her medical school professors, walked down to the law school, left medical school, and joined Vanderbilt Law School, and the rest is history. She started at the district attorney's office, and then spent decades representing hospitals, and 15 years ago went on the bench in Metro and became a judge as a relief judge for just about all emergencies, including night court, and then in 2009 became a judge for the city of Brentwood, and that is where she sits now. So she will be here soon. She's also the mother of a 2006 graduate of MBA, Reagan Jewett. Right here on my right, I have General Tammy Mead, who's an assistant district attorney here in Nashville. She is currently the lead attorney in the Criminal Court Division 4, but prior to that, and really very apropos to some of the issues we're going to talk about tonight, she was the team leader of the Crimes Against Children and Human Trafficking units of the District Attorney's Office. Now, I know that sounds kind of intimidating, but actually some of the things that we're going to discuss tonight that you all actually have daily experience with are not so far afield of that. She's also worked in the Commonwealth of Kentucky and a number of other places handling felony trials, criminal cases. She has given presentations to social workers, community organizations, lawyers, city leaders, and all kinds of things specifically on the issues of human trafficking and child welfare. Lastly, we have John, I shouldn't say lastly. John's one of my good friends, so I kind of poke at him here. But we have John Day, who is, I'm telling you a CV, I'm going to pick on you for a minute. His CV is 28 pages, which I tell you that, number one, because I love it, but number two, because it really does speak to his credentials as someone who is an expert in civil law. He is a parent of 3 children. General Meade also has raised a daughter. He is super smart. See, I looked highlighted. He's super smart. He got all these awesome degrees. He's super experienced with all the work he's done. He's very well respected by lawyers around the country. He's very involved in all different kinds of bar associations and all kinds of stuff. And then starting on page 6, all the way to page 28, are all of the seminars he's given, the books he's written, the articles he's published about issues similar to things we're going to talk about tonight. So thank you all for being here, and we're going to get started. Last year I was looking up some things, and I did again this year, about what kinds of potential legal issues face you guys at 15, 16 years old and through the rest of your time in high school. And there was an article that I found that was called "Why Parents of Teens Should Have a Defense Attorney on Speed Dial." And when I went through the article, it talked about drinking and driving and drugs and shoplifting and graffiti, fake IDs, trespassing, bullying, texting, speeding, sexting, curfew, sexual assault, online behavior, and actually gave an example of 5 teenagers who had been goofing off, throwing rocks off a bridge, and ended up being charged with second-degree murder because they killed someone. Hold on a second. So there are a lot of things that you all do in your daily lives, or that you consider doing, or that you will do, or that your friends do, that actually have pretty big potential legal consequences. What we're not going to talk about tonight, and some of you and your parents submitted questions on this issue, on these kind of issues, we're not going to talk about rules at MBA. We're not going to talk about some of the psychosocial issues. This isn't a counseling session about the risks of drinking and to your health, although it certainly will be raised because it's hard to separate those from the legal implications. But this is a legal realities night. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about, and that's what these people specialize in. I want to start with a few facts, and the sooner I get done, the more we hear from them, but there are a couple of really easy things we're going to clear up. Civil law. First of all, criminal law is what you see on TV all the time, right? Where you can go to jail. You commit a crime allegedly, or you break a law that's of the state of Tennessee, and you're charged with the crime. General Meade and her office, they prosecute you for the alleged crime. And then it's determined if you're guilty or not guilty, and the consequences can be putting you in jail, taking your freedom away. Okay. The other kind of law that we have is civil law. You can't go to jail in civil law, but your money can be taken, or you can be made to stop something you're doing or made to do something you're not doing, all right? That is what John does. So as an example, if you got in a car wreck that was your fault, you probably would be sued in civil court, but if you were drinking, you probably would be charged under the criminal law for drinking and driving, right? One can put you in jail, one will take your money. Got it? So we're going to talk about both of those things. A couple of things to get out of the way. Driving. Does anybody have any questions about what you're allowed to do when you start driving? You should learn it when you get your driver's license, but it is very straightforward. We have a graduated licensing system here in Tennessee. You can get a learner's permit at 15. There are certain things you can do. When you get your driver's license at 16, you have to have spent a certain number of hours behind the wheel. You can only have one person in the car with you until you're 17. You may not use cell phones, and it goes without saying that you can't use substances because you can't use any substances legally anyway. All right, that's kind of the nutshell of driving. So In the past, we've had questions, well, can I vape and drive? Well, no, because you can't vape legally, right? It's kind of a given. The other thing that we've had questions about in the past is curfew. It's very clearly stated what the curfew is in Davidson County. It is unlawful for any person 17 years of age or less, so under 18, to be or remain in or upon a public place or at a private place without consent of the property owner, et cetera, in Davidson County during the period ending at 5 a.m. and beginning at 11 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and midnight Friday and Saturday during the school year. In the summer, the curfew is midnight, period. There are some exceptions, like if you're working, but the general rule is if you're hanging out with friends, the curfew during the school year is 11 in Davidson County, and it's midnight in the summer, and it's midnight on the weekends. Got it? Okay, so Miss Williams, can I vape while I'm driving home at 1 in the morning? No, because you can't drive at home at 1 in the morning and you can't vape. Got it? All right, curfew laws can be enforced by the police if they want to. Vaping laws can be enforced by the police if they want to. Just follow the rules, it's not that hard. All right? Okay, are you allowed to smoke a cigarette legally? No, you have to be 18. Can you buy tobacco of any kind? No. Can you buy any kind of e-cigarette or other substitute for tobacco? No. Can you possess it? No. Can you legally use it? No. Can your friend let you, borrow his or whatever it is you do? No. Can you buy a pod? No, you can't do any of it. All right? Until you're 18. Got it? Okay. Actually, did that age go up even, I think? There was a consideration of letting it go up to 21, but nonetheless, you can't do it anyway. What about marijuana? If I'm 18, can I legally purchase marijuana? No. So can I do it at 16? No. Can I do the substitute and the little pen? No. Nothing we need to talk about there, right? So if I get in a wreck and I've been smoking pot, am I okay? No, because you can't have the pot in the first place. Got it? Is there anything I need to clear up about that? All right. What about prescription drugs that were not prescribed to you? Can I take my mom's Xanax out of her medicine cabinet? No. Can I take my friend's Ritalin? No. Can I have my friend's Ritalin? No. Okay? It's not gray. It's very black and white. You may not have, you may not use, you may not borrow, you may not share anything that's not prescribed by your doctor. And even then, it's just for you. Got it? Okay. Now, let's get to some more difficult questions. So, is there any amount of alcohol that you can legally drink in the state of Tennessee? No. Is there any amount you can buy? No. Is there any amount you can take from your parents' liquor closet? No. Okay. So one of the questions that came in is how many beers can make you drunk? Well, I'm going to tell you it doesn't matter because you can't do that legally, period. And that's what we're here to talk about. Got it? So if I'm at my friend's house and we're down in the basement, the parents are upstairs and there's alcohol, can I drink it legally? No. Under no circumstances. Okay? So that's pretty clear. So if you can't, I pulled a few things because some of the questions that were submitted were about drinking and the safety of it. And this is all I'm going to say. I looked up on the National Institutes of Health, specifically the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism. Underage drinking is one of the the biggest health problems in the United States. Alcohol is the most widely used substance. As adolescents get older, they tend to drink more. Alcohol use by underage drinkers is the cause of many, many deaths from motor vehicle crashes, homicides, alcohol poisoning, falls, burns, drownings, suicides, and other things. Okay? It increases the risk of physical and sexual assault, which we'll talk about in a bit. It impairs your judgment. It increases the risk of alcohol problems later. And parents actually play a role in your ability to access that, to make decisions, and liability if something goes wrong. Got it? All right, so let's talk about that and talk about some real life scenarios. So I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but I happen to know, not only because I was a teenager, but much more recently I'm raising a teenager, that it's clear that there are parties. And it's clear that there are a lot of parties in your class. Miss Williams hears a lot. Okay, so here's the thing. You're at somebody's house, they're going to throw a big, let's say, Halloween party, and you guys want something fun to do on October 31st, and so-and-so is going to throw a party. You're going to go. When you get there, there is alcohol. Let's start with the potential criminal consequences for the kids for being at a party where they are consuming alcohol. Oh, you have to turn it on, sorry. Yeah.
If you are at a party and you are consuming alcohol and the police get called, and amazingly, police, they do get called. You think you're being quiet at a party and nobody knows, guess what? The neighborhood probably knows. And somebody's going to get mad and call. What the police officers should do or can do is haul yourself to juvenile. If you've not been to juvenile, you really don't want to go, because what you're looking at is an underage consumption charge. They can keep you overnight. They can tell your parents to come get you. They can send you to classes. They can find you delinquent. And if they do find you delinquent, once you get there to juvenile, it's on your juvenile record forever.
Any questions about that? Yes, sir.
If you're going to juvenile court, is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Well, like, what does it mean if you're, like,
What that is, and I'm guessing everyone in here has seen some kind of law show, legal Law and Order or whatever, and you've heard the word guilty and the word convicted. Do y'all know what that means? Guilty means 12 people have determined you did it, or you admit you did it. Convicted means that you now have that guilty either by verdict or by plea on your record, okay? If you are a juvenile, we are not allowed to say you are convicted. If you are a juvenile, they call you delinquent. All that means is you're convicted as a juvenile. It's just they won't let us say the word. Does that make sense? It's all just, semantics at that point.
So is it the same or different or an additional potential violation if I'm 16, my buddy comes over to my house, I've taken the vodka out of my parents' cabinet and I give it to my buddy?
If you give it to your buddy, if you're both drinking it at the house, you're both guilty of consumption. If you give it to him, and let's just take that one small step further. Okay, you take it out of the cabinet, but for some reason you don't go out, but you give it to Bobby or whoever it was that came to the house, and he goes out. The police can drag you if he goes out and he gets caught with that. Caught with it, or worse, gets caught for DUI, gets caught for vehicular assault, vehicular homicide. It could come back on you because you're the one that illegally took it. It's theft because it wasn't your vodka. You stole it from your parents and you gave it to somebody underage. You could go to juvenile court over that as well.
So do you see that's three things? That's three different things. The taking it, the having it, the giving it. Got it? Okay. Now, let's talk about the potential consequences up to that point, John, for the parents. So we're back in the basement. These kids are having their Halloween party, and the parents are upstairs, and the kids are consuming alcohol in the basement of their home.
The responsibility of the parents under that circumstance will in some way depend on what they know. So there's a couple of ways this can happen, right? The kids can bring the alcohol to the parents' home, parents of one of the kids, and the parents not know about it at all and have no reason to know about it. In that circumstance, the parents aren't going to have any responsibility. If, on the other hand, the parents supply the alcohol, the parents are gambling their financial future, because thou shalt not provide alcohol to underage kids. And if, heaven forbid, somebody gets hurt, leaves the party, drives and gets in a wreck, leaves the party, is walking and gets hit by a car, et cetera, the parents are facing financial responsibility to supplying alcohol to underage kids who are drinking. In the middle, it can get a little squishy. Let's say the kids are all downstairs and there's an alcohol cabinet down there and the parents upstairs know it's there but don't take any steps to secure it. That is a potential problem. I need to know more. But in my house, I've had 3 teenagers. I still got one there. The alcohol cabinet was locked. And I do drink and have for decades. But when the kids were there with their friends, the alcohol cabinet was locked. And I would recommend the same thing to any parent. It's not that hard to do.
Well, I've got a question on that front too. So I let the kids have a party out in the pool house, right? But I see them coming in and out of the house some, and it's pretty clear to me that they're probably engaging in something illegal. I mean, should have known? Can I turn a blind eye?
Yeah, that's where the facts get to be important. It's what you do or reasonably should have known. And you can see how it can get dicey there, right? If kids are coming in smelling of alcohol, even though you didn't know it was out there, your risk as a parent increases. If you got a refrigerator full of beer in the pool house and you've got a bunch of 15, 16, 17-year-old kids out there, your risk increases. I'm not saying that the parents would necessarily be held liable under those circumstances. I'm saying that as someone who was a 16-year-old boy at one point, almost 50 years ago, that's a high-risk activity, or it was when I was a kid. High risk for the parents.
Is there any potential criminal liability involving the alcohol use of a minor for the parents?
There can be, and it goes back to what John was saying. It's very fact specific. If the parent supplies the alcohol, they can be charged with, at the very minimum, contributing to the delinquency of a minor. And if they are convicted of that, they're looking at jail for up to 11 months and 29 days, 1 day short of an entire year. And that's if they just get caught drinking and nothing else happens. Criminal liability can go up if there's injury or death associated with that. And if it's like they're at the pool house and the parents they have no idea what's going on out there, no idea, no reason to believe they're out there drinking, they may not get charged with criminal activity. But if they know it or they provided it, then yes, they can face criminal liability.
And we had that issue arise in Brentwood, and Judge, you may know about it better than me. I think you're the better person to talk about it than I am.
Judge, you've got a microphone. You just have to turn the switch on.
Yeah.
I don't really need this blasted thing. I've probably seen one or two of you in here. How many of you drive? Raise your hand. I've seen one or two. Huh? we had we had a football player in Brentwood in the last year who was an extraordinary young man. Now, John, correct me on the facts if I get this wrong. Now, let me tell you first that I try to go to every funeral of every young man or woman that we lose in Davidson County and every adjacent county. If we lose a teenager, I'm usually there. And that's because I care about every one of you. The majority of teenagers that we lose are because of alcohol, drugs, stupidity, or depression. I go to every one of them, if I can. It's brutal. This child, don't hold me to the facts, but he was a very large boy, an outstanding football player. He's not a boy that drank. He was not a drinker, I mean. But he went to a party that was put on by a dad that was not a bad dad. But you can, and I'm speaking to the parents, is that correct, Ms. Williams?
Yes, ma'am.
This dad, you cannot, parents, you are parents, you are not your friends' children. You're parents. This dad, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe alcohol was provided. This young man was something like 240 pounds. And parents, these children are not used to drinking, okay? When you send them to college, some of them are. Listen, by the time mine got to college, that's another story. Who played football for NBA, by the way, class of 2006. Child had way more experience than I wanted him to have, but we stopped that stuff in the sophomore year. But this boy, the peer pressure, it was a sweet party. Senior years, I recall. This child, young man, 240 pounds, went out under extreme pressure. Football players, that's my biggest. I'll tell you that 70% of the funerals I go to, they play football. Maybe 62%. I'm a statistician. Went outside and fell asleep. And was found dead by my police officers. Dead at 5:56 a.m. from alcohol poisoning. You all play sports here. You got to play some sort of sports. I don't care if it's rifle shooting or soccer or whatever. My child went. Your teammate is dead in a field. This boy didn't really drink. He's 250 something pounds. You want to know what's happening to that dad? This is a lovely man. Everything he has ever worked for is gone because he wanted to love those boys. He knew them all. Parents, call me. I'm not hard to find. I'm the judge in Brentwood. But young men,
And the father in that case, if my memory serves me correctly, was charged with 19 counts of contributing to the delinquency of minors.
That's correct.
So guys, do you see what's happening in parents? We're now talking about multiple stages of liability, right? And remember, if you're the one providing this to your friend, you have potential liability as well. Parents can have responsibility in the civil law for your actions and for their actions. So they can get double hit. Under the criminal law, you can be held responsible and your parents can be held responsible for your own actions just out of this one scenario, which we know happens often. Now, not everybody in here drinks. I understand that. And even fewer of you probably use other substances. But these are things that you are aware of, probably places that you have been or will be, certainly before you get out of high school, and definitely in college if you have not been already. And these are the kinds of things that I hope that you take a moment to think about before you engage in certain activities. Because the consequences are very severe. Now, we've talked a little bit about the potential liability of your parents because you're only 15 and 16. But General, what happens when they turn 18?
Once you turn 18, you come to what we call big boy court. And anything that you do after 18, if you are convicted of a crime, you're going to be having a criminal record for the rest of your life. Now, just for a little clarity, and I don't want to give anybody permission, in the criminal law, the first time you are in big boy court, in criminal court, depending on what you're charged with, you can go on a special probation, and if you complete that, at the end of that probation, if you do it with no issues, no violations, everything is perfect, you can have that taken off your record so the public can never see it again. Law enforcement, I can always see it. But you get one shot of that in the state of Tennessee, and it has to be for specific crimes. If you're convicted of something that's not on that list, you are going to be a convicted felon. And do you want to know what goes on when you're a convicted felon? Anybody know how easy it is to get through life if you have a felony conviction? A lot of apartment complexes will not rent to you. It's hard to get credit. It'll mess up everything in your life. So once you turn 18, whatever you do is tagged with you the rest of your life.
So fellas, I know I stop sometimes and I think what I would feel like if I were in your circumstances sitting here listening to this big scary stuff. But what I really need you guys to stop and think about is what you hear, what you see on social media, and how many times you have been made aware of or been present at a circumstance that could lead to the situations we're talking about now. I'm the mom of a teenager. I see it almost every weekend, right? Because it's what comes across social media. So even if you haven't been in that situation, most of you certainly are aware that these are not really far-fetched stories at all. And they certainly didn't wait till 10th grade to show up. Some of you experienced these things much younger than 10th grade. All right? I want to take 1 second and ask if any of you all have questions. A couple of other things about drinking that I don't want to belabor because we have more important things to talk about. But can you use a fake ID? No, you can't use a fake ID. It's forging a document. There are all kinds of criminal things that go along with that. You can't have one. I don't think we need to answer any more questions about that. Anything that your question is, can I do this while drinking? Can I drink here? The answer is just no. It really is that simple. And because it's that simple, it means that the potential consequences for things that you may choose to do can even be greater because it's a very black and white law, right? You can't do it. It's not like you can do it under certain circumstances. You can't do it. Got it? Do y'all want to talk about drinking anymore, or do we need to move on? Now, I want to say this one thing. We're not talking about all of the psychosocial pieces. We're not talking about the emotional pieces because that's not what this is about. But Ms. Scholler and our whole counseling team, if there is something that you want to follow up on, come see me, or come see Ms. Scholler, or come see Coach Sanders. We're there to help you and to talk to you. That's just not what tonight is about, okay?
Can I add one thing?
Please do.
One thing that people don't think about when it comes to drinking and driving is how the consumption of alcohol or any other drug affects your ability to perceive and react to danger. And I'm sure there's lots of people in this room good at math. Let me give you some math. When you're driving at 60 miles an hour, you're going at 88 feet per second. If you are a typical adult, your reaction or your perception reaction time is between 3/4 of a second and 1.5 seconds, which means for you to see, perceive, and react to danger at 60 miles an hour will take you somewhere between 66 feet and 132 feet. 132 feet, okay? If you are drinking, you'll lose 1 second or more on that. If you're texting, you'll lose 5. At 60 miles an hour, texting on a road, you'll travel over a football field and a half without paying attention to what you're doing. That's when bad things happen, especially if you're meeting somebody coming the other direction going the same speed. If two cars are going 60, the closing speed is what? 120. There's 176 feet evaporating every single second. So there's all sorts of reasons not to drink and drive, or text and drive, or hold a cell phone and talk on it and drive, particularly when you're a young driver. But math is another reason. It's just math.
Hey, can I
Yep.
piggyback a little bit on what John said? He's telling you the numbers on how long it's going to take, how fast it's going to happen. I know, because I also have raised a kid, the prevailing thought in your mind is, well, I can handle it. It's not going to happen to me. I can text and drive. I can drink a couple of beers and head home. I only live 2 miles down the road. You're lying to yourself. You're lying to everyone around you. I've been prosecuting people for 25 years. I have handled untold numbers of DUI cases, vehicular assault cases, vehicular homicide cases. You know what the defense is in every one of those cases? Every last one of them. He didn't mean to. You can't hold him responsible, or you shouldn't put him in jail. He didn't mean to do that. I've never met anybody who's killed someone in a car or maimed someone in a wreck who came in and said, I meant to do that. I went out that night knowing that was going to happen. Never once. Don't lie to yourself and think you can get in a car and do that. Because what that's going to land you is in juvenile court, or once you turn 18, in the Department of Corrections. That's a lie. Just don't do it.
So I'm going to follow up on the texting, because I think even those of you who wouldn't be drinking now, or wouldn't, think of smoking pot or doing prescription drugs or whatever. I mean, all of us text. You guys text all day long, or maybe not text, Snapchat. I think y'all already graduated from the things I still do. But so we're going to throw all that social media into this texting. So when I say texting, I'm talking everything, Snapchatting, all that stuff. Okay. So let's set up a little scenario that I think is fairly realistic. You guys are driving, what happens, that when you get a driver's license, your parents have to sign to be responsible for you, right? Because you don't have any assets, you are a minor, so they sign to be financially responsible for you. So I want to set up a pretty basic fact pattern here where Josh is out driving. I'm just going to throw you under the bus because you were so brave to sit up here on the front. I appreciate it so much. Josh is out driving, and he decides that he wants to follow up on a snap that was sent him. Right? He's only clicking, right, or taking a picture of his head. It's not like you're saying anything. And so he decides he wants to do that while he's driving. Josh doesn't see the person in the crosswalk, and he hits her. Okay? And she dies after being in the hospital for a month. First of all, you're going to have the criminal problems that General Meade just brought up. Okay? John, what civil problems are they going to have? And I'm going to add some facts regarding the parents here in a minute.
I just finished a case like this, except it was a left-hand turn that killed my client by a 17-year-old boy. So here's what happens next. The family of the person who died comes to see a lawyer like me, who investigates the case, determines who's responsible, and the first thing we pull after the crash report is the parental responsibility statement, and we see which parent signed it, because that parent is automatically responsible for what happened. So maybe in Josh's case, it's Josh's mom who signed it. Maybe Josh's dad was out of town that day. But the car is in Josh's dad's name, which means they're potentially and probably a lot responsible. So in the 17-year-old kid who killed the woman, I could sue not only, and did sue, not only Josh, but both parents, both of them on the hook. What does that mean? Everything they own is on the hook. These particular parents that I'm talking about, you may know these folks, lived in a $900,000 house with probably $400,000 of equity in it. And they didn't have enough insurance. They had to come out of their pocket, the parents did, to pay. So I don't know if that was college money. I don't know if that was second home money. I don't know if that was their retirement or part of their retirement savings. But because somebody was rushing to athletic practice and turned left in the face of oncoming traffic, those parents had to write a check for $100,000 or more. So that's the consequence.
Okay, so I want to add a fact.
Although
yeah,
there's
yeah.
one worse consequence, but we'll get to it.
Okay, I want to add a fact here. I want Josh's mom has Life 360 in the car, and she knows that he's been speeding. She knows that he's been on his phone when he's not supposed to be, and she's talked to him about it a million times, but she's never taken his car keys. And he's speeding down the road and trying to respond to a snap at the same time, and the same scenario happens.
The law can hold a person responsible for a tort, a civil wrong called negligent entrustment. When you negligently entrust a dangerous instrumentality, like a car, to someone who shouldn't be permitted to drive it. If you want to see the real-life consequences of that kind of decision by a parent, go on the Tennessee Administrative Office of the Court's website today. One of my partners argued a case today before the Court of Appeals where a parent was hit for over $5 million for negligently entrusting a vehicle to her son, who had a long history of alcohol and drug abuse.
There you go. If you guys on the live stream are having trouble, please just restart it. We're having a few technical difficulties. All right, so you guys get the picture. You're responsible for your own actions, potentially criminally. The civil responsibility almost always lies with your parents. Your parents can also be held criminally liable for your actions if the facts are just so. So there are a lot of pieces to the puzzle. I
Ms.
want
Williams,
yes,
can
sir.
I
Yes,
make
ma'am.
a couple of
Please do.
closing
Yes, ma'am.
statements on this? Does this work? I'm not-
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I'm always so loud. I want to stop for a minute. Even though I'm a judge, I want to speak to the parents, and I want to speak to you gentlemen. These extraordinary lawyers have talked to you about liability. I don't want to talk to you about liability. I don't want to talk to you about money. I want to talk to you, to the parents, and I want to talk to you gentlemen about I want to speak to you from my heart, and I'm going to tell you that this is going to be very difficult for me. But I want to speak to you about what I think is much more important than money. I sat here 17 years ago as a parent out there, and all I heard was economics, because when my children started the first day of second and third grade of Innsworth, I have a son who's 33, a daughter who's 32. I overnight became a single parent, and no grandparents, no trust funds, no anything. And I was just terrified. All I cared about was keeping my children at Innsworth and then MBA. Economics was all I thought about. And I managed somehow to successfully get them through Innsworth and MBA. My son came to MBA in the 7th grade. It was the very smartest decision I ever made in my life. I'm a child of immigrants. I had no family here. I love this institution, and I love you boys more than I can tell you, and that's why I'm here tonight. I want you to go home, every one of you, and I want you to thank your parents for the commitment they made to send you here. Parents, I want you to hug your kids. I don't care what kind of student they are, because all we have is today. This is not about money. We scare the bejesus out of you about money because it's how we try to get to you. But what we're really trying to do is to save your lives. Parents, I need to tell you, as a judge, 50 to 60% of the cases I see is the parents. Because they tell their kids to do one thing, and the parents are drinking, speeding, texting. Just stop it, for God's sakes. You're telling your kids to do one thing, and then you're drinking, you're texting, you're speeding. Just stop. Do you think these kids are stupid? Just stop. Please, boys, grow up. Just grow up. Be the man that MBA. Be grateful for your parents. They're not perfect, okay? They're not perfect. Life is hard. Being at this school is the biggest privilege you will ever have. And that's just my opinion. If you don't like it, then go home and tell your parents you want to go somewhere else. I'm a little prejudiced. Next thing I'm going to tell you is one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. MBA made my son. I asked him to leave Innsworth in the 6th grade. If you know about Innsworth, you know you're the king in the 7th and the 8th grade. I asked him to come here in the 7th grade. I didn't make him ask him. Because he didn't have grandparents, he didn't have uncles, he didn't have a dad. I mean, physically had one. And later, gratefully he did. But at the time, it wasn't legal. MBA was my sons. The coaches, the teachers here made him into an incredible man. On the 4th of July, at 26 years old, this incredible young man, in an instant, was killed. In a tragic accident. It wasn't on the road, it was on the water. Yes, there was alcohol involved, but he was sound asleep on a float in 6 feet of water. He was an incredible. Parked his boat with all of his best friends from India. That boy was an extraordinary, is an extraordinary young man. It was a tragic accident. I made sure that no charges were found. Because what good would that do? It was not horribly reckless or negligent. He was part of my son's church group that was there. That could be you. Please, I am begging you, do not be the young man who is responsible for, in a moment, that 2 fully uniformed police officers show up at your mother's door at 5:23 p.m. on July the 4th at your mother's house or someone else's house. Yes, I am a judge, and I dedicate my life to trying to save you young men and women by telling my story with love and compassion and tight boundaries, okay? Parents, I'm by speaking to you. Raising that child, my son Reagan, oh my God, he wore me out. Mischievous, mischievous, mischievous. And just like you, he was a wonderful young man. You need me? Parents, you need me? Young men, you need me? I'm not going to die. I'm a love judge and butler. You need me, you call me. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Listening.
Thank you.
And Ms. Williams, that's the point I was trying to make before. The financial responsibility is important, the criminal responsibility is important, but I don't know how one would live with making a mistake that hurt somebody else or took their life. I mean, just think about it. I don't know how you wouldn't think about it every single day for the rest of your life. And that stress would affect the course of your life forever.
So I don't know, it's difficult for me to segue from that because it's such an important message. I have been charged with addressing one more topic that I feel No, because that's super important. But this actually is super important too, because it has to do with how you treat other people. And I want to talk a minute about the use of your cell phones and your computers for sexting, pornography, cyberbullying, all those things that are catchphrases. But again, I know more than I ever wish I knew. So I know this is something that's happening a lot, and if I'm going to be frank, in my job at NBA, it's increased during COVID. And so we've got to spend a minute talking about the legal implications of that kind of behavior. If you haven't been to a party where there's been drugs or alcohol, I feel confident that you've either been sent a picture, you've sent a picture, or you've seen the picture, or you've heard of somebody getting a picture of someone else and parts that we should not see on camera. I also am very confident that a number of you in here have looked at pornography at different and varying times and to different and varying extents. And I'm just going to be quite real about that. It is a national phenomenon that this is going up among kids your age. And we need to talk about it because it does not come without consequences. Is it a crime, General, for them to send a picture of themselves naked to someone else or any part of their body that typically should be clothed?
It can be.
Okay.
Let me just take 1 second. I want to ask a question. Who in here thinks child pornography is wrong? I got every hand. You think child pornography is wrong? If you are sent a picture of someone under the age of 18 that is sexually suggestive, lewd or lascivious is one of the catchphrases we use in the law, naked, and this person's under 18, what do you think that is? It's on your phone. It's on your phone, You all got it last weekend, right? That's child pornography. Now, what happens if Josh's girl, because he's right here.
Bless his heart.
Bless
Josh is never sitting in the front row again.
I feel like we owe Josh something after this.
I know.
Okay. He does. God love him. But Josh's girl sent him a picture that's sexually suggestive and nude. And maybe she only meant it to go to him. And he's like, holy mother, she is smoking. I think it was back from my day. Whatever
Hot.
y'all say now.
She's hot. Oh, wait, and
Right.
there are all kinds of
so
things.
we got the woo, woo, woo up here.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay? She's a beautiful girl. But he is so proud of this
You guys, this is actually
that he's got to send it to
pretty
Justin.
serious.
All right, where's Justin? Because there's a Justin in every room. Okay, so we've got Justin. He is so proud of this girl. He's going to send it to Justin and say, look what I got, and look what you ain't got. What did he just do?
Interstate commerce.
He just distributed child pornography. Child pornography. So now what's happening? What's happening?
Hey guys, listen up,
My-
because we all know
This
that
is
if
happening.
I took phones up, I'd find something. Other than they disappear, but y'all take screenshots because I'm no idiot either.
Yeah,
But go ahead.
I'm not stupid. I'm old, I'm not stupid. But what we've done here now is Josh has distributed it, and Justin's a recipient. He's opened it and looked at it. So now we have two guys that have engaged in child pornography. Justin is like, you got to look at this, and sends it to Trevor and to John, and to Dustin and whoever else is here, and he sends it out. Now he has also distributed child pornography. That's a felony, guys, and guess where it gets you? Big boy court. Guess where else it gets you? The sex offender registry. And if you think you can't get a job with a felony, get a job when you're on the sex offender registry. So it's all fun and games until my ICAC detectives come knocking on your door. And we're going to search everything you got. And you're going to go to court. And you're going to be found delinquent. Let me throw this out at you, because I'm going to take this one step further while I got the mic. Now, we've got Justin, we've got Josh, we've got Dustin, we've got Trevor. Everybody's in juvenile court. And everybody, because you're 17 at this point. You may be 15, 16. We're going to say you're 17 at this point. And you have now been found delinquent, and you now have a juvenile record. A year later, you just turned 19. And for your birthday, you go out and do some stupid stuff, you get drunk, and you kill somebody. Okay? Don't laugh. I'm telling you something that's happened in real life. Do you think when I'm standing there talking to the judge about why you should be either given probation or why you should go to jail, do you think that I can bring up your juvenile record? Who says yes? Yes, I can. So it's very, y'all have to know this, because I get so many young people on the stand and I start asking them about their juvenile record and they'll say, you can't talk about that. Oh yes, yes I can. It may close at 18 when you turn 18, but it's not hidden. It's hidden from the public, it's never hidden from me. So think about these things. Trading pictures of your naked girlfriends will get you in juvenile court. It can also put you on the sex offender registry.
Or of yourselves.
And we are serious. I do not play. I send people to prison with no parole for that. I got a teacher sitting there doing 24 years at 100%. He'd never been arrested, never got a speeding ticket before in his life. He's doing 24 to 100 because we found it. If you think I'm playing, I'm not.
All right, friends, we've got to end. If you have questions to come, you're welcome to come up here for a few minutes and talk with your masks on. I really appreciate your attention. You all have been wonderful. If you have follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to email them to me or to come talk to one of us, and I will get your questions answered. Thank you and have a great night.